So Owen Jones has been doing amazing work on Palestine over the last 20 months or so. And I want to go over an interview where with Piers Morgan, where he completely just destroys Piers Morgan. So let's get straight into the video.
The problem with this is you're saying, well, if I was an apartheid state which had deliberately and systematically...
No,
because if I was Israel, I would create a single state.
So what would you have done? Nothing.
Well, what I would have done is, if I was suddenly the Israeli state, probably what I would have done is dealt with the underlying causes of what happened and sent...
You wouldn't have responded to that.
Well, you would send the soldiers in the here and now to prevent civilians on the borders. On the borders, they failed to defend because they were in the West Bank committing a pogrom at the time, Piers. But
you wouldn't have gone after the people that did it. If you'd been...
everyone who commits war crimes needs to be held, sent to justice. The international...
No, that's not my question.
But the international criminal... Yes, it is.
Do you believe that Israel had a right to defend itself?
Gaza, as you know, under international law, wasn't another state. It's occupied legally as per international law.
But all the terrorists came from Gaza.
Yeah, because...
So did Israel have a right to defend itself?
But again, do you know why I regard this as so offensive to the worth of Palestinian life? I'll tell you why. In 2020...
Do you think Hamas cared about the lives of Palestinians?
No, I haven't argued that.
When they committed that
you know
atrocity?
what I think about 7th October? We don't have to...
Okay, let me just a little bit of a spoiler alert here. Piers Morgan does not let him get a word in edgeways, and that's for a reason. Because Owen knows his stuff. And he just has to bombard him with questions like a Gish Gallop, because he knows that the writing's on the wall. Piers Morgan knows it's a genocide. He denies it's a genocide. So he has to just bombard him with questions. And usually he does let his people speak. But because Owen Jones knows his stuff, he doesn't let him get a word in edgeways.
632 days into genocide, have to start going back to, do you condemn Hamas? You know my views on that. We don't arm...
That wasn't my question.
We don't arm and support Hamas.
I said,
the reason...
I said, do you think Hamas cared about the lives of Palestinians when they launched that attack?
No,
having built an intricate tunnel system which protected Hamas, but exposed the civilians to certain death.
I don't support Hamas. It's not relevant. What?
Of course they're relevant.
No, it isn't relevant. I'll tell you why it's not relevant. I'll tell you why you would
Hamas isn't relevant.
You would find this question offensive if I put it to you. If I had said to you, in 2023, 240 Palestinians had been killed that year by the Israeli state, including 40 children, what else was Hamas supposed to do on the 7th of October? What would you say?
Are you justified?
No, that's the point. I'm saying you would say correctly, there was never any excuse for war crimes. This is an outrageous... question for you to
responding.
I like how he completely misses the point there. Just shows you like the double standards of Israel. It's like, oh no, Israel can just do this. Like, Hamas just can't do anything, even though it's an illegal occupation. No, it's interesting.
Responding to a terror attack isn't a war crime. What has happened in the last few months to me has now crossed the line between legitimate self-defence to the worst terror attack of modern times against the Jewish people, has gone now past that into, and clearly from what people like Smodrich is saying, has gone into a plan, it seems to me, by the government to cleanse Gaza of Palestinians, which is a war crime.
No, so it's so easy for you to see Smodrich as your bogeyman.
Yeah.
Because
he says it on camera.
Yeah, no one doubts that Smotrich and Ben-Gvir are deeply unpleasant, mass-murdering, genocidal maniacs. Well, people do deny it. Unfortunately, a lot of people coming on the show. But who should be in prison, OK? From the very beginning, Israeli leaders and officials made clear they were going to commit a genocide. They made clear they saw no distinction between civilians and people. And the problem is, people like yourself, now, you're literally fueling a continuing campaign about a rapper and what he said on stage. Well,
a rapper you've defended, because he said he only meant the entity. And as we've now discovered, he said he meant death to every single IDF soldier.
You got that at the same time as I did, so how am I supposed to respond to that?
But given that,
I support
do you now accept that your defence of him was a little bit wrong?
I support...
Well, let's watch the clip. Here.
And death to every single IDF soldier out there as an agent of terror for Israel. Death to the IDF.
Yeah.
I've known you a long time. I have a lot of respect for you. You just have to admit, when you hear that, you were wrong to defend him in the way you defended him. He didn't mean IDF.
People I was defending...
He didn't mean IDF the entity, did it? But you accept now that you were wrong. He didn't mean that.
I didn't... here, I've only heard for the first
You've
time.
heard that. So what? Now you've heard that. Do you still say he only meant the
Well,
entity?
no, obviously now he's made clear what he meant
So you
by
accept
that.
you were wrong?
Well, yeah, because obviously...
I know. I'm not saying you, I'm not saying you should have known.
Fine.
I'm just saying that I found the defence very disingenuous by everybody. And I felt what he'd done, and this has now been proven, I think. He'd gone on social media. He'd seen people coming up with this ludicrous defence that he only meant the entity. And then, and knowing what he'd said on stage, he issues a statement saying the complete opposite that he's read from people like you defending it.
Well,
and now he's made all of you look like complete prunes.
No, the people I'm defending...
Not really. You look like the prune going on about it and not actually agreeing with Owen that what Israel is doing is a genocide. Like, you're part of the problem here. Piers has been good, but it just shows you how the double standard, because he keeps bombarding him with questions, trying to do gotchas. Just let Owen talk and give his opinion, but he doesn't. He's not interested.
Principally the people in the audience. I do not believe thousands of people attending Glastonbury were supporting that. And what I find actually even more grotesque, to be honest, and this is what I find grotesque, that view, which I don't support, I don't support killing anyone, which is what IDF soldiers shouldn't be
then we agree.
Shouldn't be sent into Gaza.
Well, then we agree.
To kill and
hang on, then we agree.
No, your guess.
You don't
Let him finish his point.
believe in killing it. I agree with you.
Your guests, who you treat as respectable people come on this show, have more extreme views than he does.
On which side?
Because they support pro-Israel. Because
what about the pro-Palestinian guests I've had on, who the Israelis say are the most extreme people in the world?
Because the war crimes being committed.
Do you only care about extremists on one side?
Sorry,
because I don't. I care about extremists on both sides.
The war crimes being committed by Israel are infinitely worse
than what Hamas did.
Absolutely.
Okay.
How many people have been killed now in Gaza? How many people?
Depending on what report you believe, between 50 and 70,000 have been killed.
Absolutely not. The Economist, for example, which, as you know...
Well, I've seen those reports.
We support the onslaught. 109,000 people.
Okay. These are unsubstantiated numbers.
Under international law...
It is generally recognised by the international community that it's between 50 and 70,000.
No, it isn't. What are you talking about?
It is.
Absolutely not.
It is.
Sorry. The international community is the international community of Western states who are arming and supporting Israel as it commits genocide. The Economist did a very deep, and the Economist supported Israel's onslaught. 109,000, that's just violent deaths. We know from other conflicts, this isn't a conflict, this is genocide, the vast majority of people die from non-violent causes. Now, the reason what he said, which I do not support, by the way, there, is...
Well, that's good.
Less extreme.
That's good.
Less extreme than your guests is under international law, it's legal to kill combatants. It is not legal to kill civilians, either because of disproportionate actions, intentionally or recklessly. Your guests who come on this show...
And he doesn't address that point, by the way, which, again, killing people is bad. That is my ethical framework. But if you're going to say it towards combatants, which is legal under international law, or innocent babies, which they snipe often twice in the head, like, this shouldn't be controversial. And also, it's words, not actions. Look at the actions of Israel enabled by America and the UK and how they've been let to get away with it. There's more anger about an artist than there is a genocide. That's the real issue here.
Who are pro-Israel guests, they support an onslaught which doesn't just kill combatants, but kills civilians. That is more extreme than what that man said, but you don't treat them as that. Why don't you treat those people as more extreme than that man? Why?
You've talked for a long time. I mean, I think we actually...
See, he has to say that because he's actually made a really good point there that he has no retort to, so he has to just bombard him with questions. And he doesn't do this. He is, like, I do quite a few of his videos, he will let people speak. But now Owen knows his stuff, he has to just bombard him with questions, like a gish gallop of questions, because... he doesn't like the answers.
Agree. You just don't want to admit we agree.
No, you don't accept what the idea for doing. You don't accept it.
As you know, I have said very publicly now for many weeks, in fact, since the start of the year, that what Israel's been doing in Gaza in the last few months...
Is it genocide?
...has crossed... I don't think it is genocide.
Well, okay,
I don't think it does.
Your opinion is irrelevant because you were wrong before. So now you've already changed your mind. Oh, no, they've gone too far. No, they went too far immediately.
This is a real problem.
Hang on. No, it's not a problem.
It is a problem because you're a genocide denier.
Hang on. I'm not a genocide denier.
You are. Do you think Israel's committing genocide? Yes or no?
Do you know what genocide is?
Yes, I do.
What do you think it is?
Genocide is the intention to destroy a people in whole or in part.
Right. Okay.
Do you not think that's what's happening to the Palestinians of Gaza?
Do you think they're trying to kill every Palestinian?
That's not the...
Oh, God. You always hear this straw man. That's not what a genocide is. In whole or in part. That's the legal definition, summarised. See, this straw man, like, it just shows you how weak, when you have a real opposition who knows their stuff, how weak Piers Morgan is on this.
The definition of genocide. Which genocide is every single person being killed?
I think what is happening is more ethnic cleansing.
Legal, like, fucking ethnic cleansing and genocide scholar here, Piers Morgan. Like, come on, Piers.
It's how I would describe it. We can disagree.
No. This is...
You can disagree. A lot of people think it is.
No, you have to look at evidence and reality and what the legal scholars say. It's not about your fucking opinion, Piers.
Genocide.
No, okay.
It has not been officially declared a genocide, right?
What does that... Obviously...
It hasn't been officially declared.
That doesn't mean it's not a genocide. Would he say that in 1942? He probably would. Would he be right? No, he'd be fucking wrong, wouldn't he? In Germany. Fucking idiot.
International Court of Justice is the only arbiter you could point to. No, just quickly, they would have to take years to do that. OK, let me just put
I would call it, what Smodrich is talking about, is ethnic cleansing.
A consensus of genocide scholars believe Israel's...
Just this semantics and fucking the killing of children. It's just so absurd. Like, we will look back at this in 5-10 years and be like, what the fuck were we doing?
Okay. And that includes, just quickly, Israeli scholars of genocide. Omar Bartov, he's a professor of genocide and Holocaust studies.
But you asked me what I think.
No. No, but this is what I'm going to ask you, because we're talking about experts, people who actually dedicate their lives.
But many experts say it isn't.
No, name... OK, let me quickly... Omar Bartov, Raz Sigal, these are only Israeli genocide scholars. Amos Goldberg, Israeli professor of Holocaust history. Daniel Blattman, he's the head of the Institute...
What's the ICC say?
The Israeli history... The ICC is still investigating, and their charges are public. Now, come up with another...
What's it said?
Well, we don't know, because they've been ordered not to release any future charges.
We do know that it has not declared it a genocide.
Yet.
Right.
Yeah,
but there's evidence that it's potential. I agree with that.
Can you tell me... No,
I agree with that. By the way...
Piers, can you give me a single...
Potential, so which one is it then? You agree with it or not? Like...
Wording!
Can you tell me a single genocide scholar...
You are talking more than Owen. You're the interviewee. Owen should be talking more. And we know why you don't want him talking.
Owen, let me get a word in.
Oh my God.
My biggest problem with all of this is that you and I can argue the toss about numbers and this and that and scale and genocide, the ethnic cleansing and so on. The reason we don't know more about how to assess this is because British and international journalists have not been allowed into Gaza to do their job. On that, I think we completely agree, right? If the international journalists were allowed...
See there, he deflects. He doesn't want to talk about the genocide because he knows he's wrong. He doesn't want to talk about the legal scholars who have assessed it. So he has to go move on and go like, well, let's not talk about that anymore.
In, they can get to the bottom of all this stuff. I think when they finally get in, we are going to find evidence of appalling war crimes. I really believe that. I believe that is why the Israeli government continues to ban international journalists. So
he believes there's a war crime, but not a genocide. So he's willing to make that assessment, but he won't go, even though he quotes Smotrich, Ben Gvir, like, incredibly inconsistent.
It may well be that when the journalists get in, that you and I meet again, and I say to you, I believe the bar for genocide was met. At the moment, I don't.
So can Piers,
well, that's my honest opinion.
Can I just ask you? You spoke for a long time there. I read several genocide scholars. There's a consensus of genocide scholars who believe this is genocide. I'm asking you to name me one.
Well, I'll just name the ICC scholar who have not ruled that yet.
We don't know that.
See, you can't answer. He said before, there's plenty of genocide scholars who think it's not a genocide. He can't name one. Like, who believes this bullshit?
We do.
No, we don't. Sorry, the ICC, just quickly, is this true or not? Do you know this? The ICC have ordered any future charges cannot be made public. We don't know what other charges they've made. The bar for genocide, because of intent, is much higher.
Right.
Now, so we don't know what charges they're going to make.
So we don't know it's genocide yet?
Well...
You just admitted it.
No.
Or did you not?
It takes years, that process. The legal process takes years.
So why don't we wait for that to determine whether it's genocide or not?
We can rely on the evidence of genocide scholars who dedicate their lives. Okay. You think you know better than genocide scholars? That's
you think the scholars know more than the ICC? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't,
because the ICC takes years.
It's clearly an arguable point.
Well, it isn't, because the ICC take years. That legal process takes years. Now, for example, on the 9th of October, the head of KOGAR, the Israeli general in charge of KOGAR, he said, the Major General Ghassanalian, he said Hamas has become ISIS. He said the citizens of Gaza are celebrating instead of condemning. Human beasts will be dealt with accordingly. You will get no water or energy, just damage. You asked for hell, you wanted hell. That tweet was addressed, it was a video, the tweet was addressed to Hamas and the residents of Gaza. Do you accept that's genocidal?
I think it falls into the category of what I've said repeatedly.
Why is that not genocidal?
Well, it's genocidal language.
Okay, so he's the guy...
See, he has to play these word games like it's genocidal language, it's genocidal rhetoric, but it's not a genocide. Like, we're talking about intent here, which will be evidenced by people's language. I mean, that's how we evidence intent, right? But then it doesn't meet it.
Who is he? He's the IDF general.
Smotrich is the leading member of the government.
IDF in charge.
Smotrich talks in genocidal language. I don't dispute that.
So you accept intent?
So which way then? Yeah, exactly. Do you accept intent?
Is that?
You're asking me
you accept intent as the highest bar.
You ask me, do I believe yet it is genocide? I do not.
Do you believe there is genocide?
Well, that doesn't make sense. If there's intended, which you agree, genocidal language, genocidal rhetoric, surely that's the evidence you need as a journalist. No?
Genocidal intent.
I believe it's genocidal rhetoric.
No, well, what's the difference between rhetoric and intent?
What is the difference
expressed by a minister and a general?
Describe to me the difference between a genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Well, ethnic cleansing is just the forcible removal of people from their land on the basis of ethnicity. Genocide is when you attempt to destroy people in whole or in part. You don't need to. You don't actually need to kill people to do that, by the way. So, by your definition, Srebrenica is.
So there's
genocide.
not a lot of difference.
Do you think Srebrenica wasn't a genocide?
Do you think
Srebrenica wasn't a genocide?
So I categorise it as a plan to do ethnic.
Do you believe
cleansing.
Srebrenica wasn't a genocide?
Well, no, hang on. Let's stick on this.
No.
Hang on.
It was adjudicated genocide. It's not a genocide according to you.
Let's stick on this.
Why?
I have said I believe that Smotrich is planning ethnic cleansing. And that may be what is happening here.
Okay, so you said it was genocidal rhetoric, genocidal language, and then all of a sudden he's planning an ethnic cleansing? When did he say? I mean, come on, Piers.
Right? And you think it's genocide what's going on. I think it is ethnic cleansing is the plan.
No one cares.
And there's not a lot of difference between them.
Well,
right? You accept that?
Well, genocide means...
So you think I'm sort of denying genocide? I'm saying I think the bar has been met for me of ethnic cleansing because it's come out of Smotrich's mouth.
Ethnic cleansing doesn't actually have legal standing. It's a term which was a...
No, it does. It's a war crime.
No, well, it doesn't exist.
It is a war crime. You know that.
No, ethnic cleansing is
a war crime.
Sorry. The term ethnic cleansing doesn't exist as legal language. You're talking about forcible displacement of people from the homes. That's a war crime. But by your definition, Srebrenica, which, by the way, lots of Israeli leaders claim isn't genocide. They were allied, many of them, to the Bosnian Serbs, who had huge amounts of sympathy for. They said it wasn't a genocide. Is it a genocide?
I believe it was.
Okay,
So in a year, maybe 2 years, Piers Morgan will be like, oh yeah, it's a genocide now, all of a sudden, even though we know all the same stuff. It's just so pathetic.
Do you think the Rohingya, is that a genocide in Burma? They haven't exterminated the vast majority of the Rohingya. Is that a genocide?
I prefer to wait.
Sorry.
You're right.
I'm getting excited.
You're getting nervous, aren't you?
Very excited.
But look, let's just conclude with things we agree about.
Okay.
Right?
See, you can't answer that question. Comparisons. And it's strange because what is his motivation there? I think he doesn't want to be criticised.
Is your position now about Bob Villan, given what we just watched, when he's chanced death to everyone?
See, having a real discussion about genocide, Israel's behaviour, and you have to bring it back to Bob Villan. He has nothing. It's just so strange.
Every single IDF soldier, you would condemn that.
I don't support I don't want any...
But when you try and ask him, do you condemn the genocide in Gaza by Israel? Well, no, it's genocidal rhetoric, genocidal language, babies being sniped. But, 100,000 people, at least, slaughtered. But no, it's not a genocide. I mean, come on, Piers.
Need soldiers to be killed. Right. And the way to stop that is to stop IDF soldiers committing genocide.
Just to clarify, in light of what we've just seen, would you now withdraw your defence that he was only talking about IDF being an entity?
His statement was obviously not correct. He didn't say that. But as I've said...
Do you wish you hadn't defended him now?
Well, I wouldn't have defended him on the basis of his statement because...
Well, you said he was only specifically talking about the entity, not people.
Well, that's because that's what he said, Piers.
But obviously...
But that's what people...
Yeah, but he lied to you, didn't he?
Well, the statement's not true. But
he lied to everybody.
I have to say, Piers, he's less extreme than most of your guests because your guests...
That's a different argument.
No, it isn't. It isn't because you don't show...
But I take them on. Have you watched my show?
Yes, and you don't show...
Have you watched me taking on the Israeli guests recently?
You treat those Israeli guests as having respectable views. You always have. In the first month
Have you watched him the last few months?
In the first month...
Have you watched the show?
Do you support him?
I don't think you've been watching the show, have you?
I don't know.
Why don't you ask...
Well, you have more respect for them because you let them fucking talk, Piers. You do just assume that their positions are... You don't talk about the genocide. You don't talk, again, because you don't believe it exists. You are pretty... Sometimes he can, but, he's not letting Owen talk. He lets them talk. It's about their fucking nonsense.
Israeli Twitter or Zionist Twitter, what they think of what I've been doing on the show.
All the way through.
You would know exactly how I've been treating the pro-Israel government guests.
In the first month.
And you wouldn't be saying this.
In the first month.
You haven't watched, have you? Be honest.
I've watched many of your guests who are pro-Israel.
Did you watch the interview?
Did
you watch the interview with his Israeli ambassador?
Yeah, and she's very easily upset. It's very easy to set her off.
The Lawyers for Israel, Natasha Hausdorff, did you watch that?
I've seen you.
Did you watch the interview with the minister this week?
I've seen you from the beginning.
Come on,
interview pro-Israel guests and treat them with deference and respect.
Owen.
These are people who support killing civilians,
okay,
not soldiers.
I've also
Under international law, it's illegal to kill soldiers. It's not legal to kill civilians.
Apart from the fact that...
Sorry, illegal to kill soldiers, not legal to kill
Had you watched the show for the last few weeks and months, you would know.
I don't watch it every one, Piers.
I don't think you've watched it for months,
I've seen you watch... But there we go, because you're admitting that is for the first part of the genocide, when it was clearly a genocide, you were treating
it wasn't clearly a genocide.
Yes, it was.
No.
They said from the beginning what they were going to do.
Was the obvious response, which
When was the most lethal month? When was the most lethal month? Of Palestinian civilians?
Yes, first month.
OK, so when they were wiping Gaza from the face of the earth, where Gaza, within 3 months, was a different colour and texture when looked at from space, when they had had the biggest, worst attrition, when Israeli leaders and officials made clear they did not see a distinction between civilians and officials, you don't think that was genocide, and you were treating those people as though they had respectable views.
No, I thought...
But their views are more extreme than Bob Dylan.
I thought the Israeli military response was a direct response to Hamas's official spokesman saying, on camera, for the world to see, we're going to keep trying to do more and more October the 7th.
Did you think this about Rwanda?
Why? What about
No, it's not what about it. It's about consistency. What happened in Rwanda? What's the difference?
I'm not going to talk about every conflict around the world.
No. Yeah, because you just showing your inconsistency. He will not be able to... This is not tenable in the long term. It's just insane, the double standard.
No,
you've asked me a direct question. You've asked me a direct question about the first month in which Israel bombarded Hamas in Gaza.
No, they killed murdered innocent civilians.
They killed lots of civilians.
Thousands of innocent civilians.
Well, it's not murder if you are doing a proportionate response to a terror attack.
It wasn't proportionate. Do you accept that?
I kept asking what is proportionate. Right? I have now concluded in the last few months it's gone way past proportionate.
But this is the thing. You spent months...
You don't blame Hamas for what happened in the first few weeks.
It was in the obvious...
Do you not blame Hamas?
The war crimes, I blame them for their war crimes.
You don't blame them for what Israel then did?
Every war crime Israel committed
so
is on Israel.
Hamas built a massive tunnel network. They then launched the worst terror attack on Jewish people
has no legal
since
standing.
the Holocaust. And when Israel inevitably responds the way they did, that's not on Hamas.
There is no...
Inevitably? Why is that inevitable? There's mass slaughter. It's not inevitable at all. There's proportionality. There's international... war crime. Well, the rules of war, which obviously sounds insane, but there are parameters of what you can do and what you can't do. That's why they have committed so many war crimes, killing children, killing innocent people, blockading food, like cutting off water, electricity, which he agrees with. But why, like, how extreme does it have to be to reach genocide? Because I know genocide sounds scary, but that, it's so obvious. Like, why deny it?
No legal basis for what you just said. You cannot say when you commit war crimes, I was made to do them. Every war crime, legally speaking, that the Israeli military
But I don't
commits
think what Israel did in the first few months was a war
But
crime.
that's like saying...
It was a defence against...
What? So they didn't... See, he's so inconsistent. They didn't commit any more war crimes, even though we have evidence, video, testament of all the insane stuff that the IDF have been doing. Like, which way is it?
Against Hamas doing it again.
But you wouldn't say that about the 240 Palestinians who'd been killed by the Israeli military in the months before 7th of October.
But
so what's the difference?
Israelis have also been killed throughout the 75-year conflict. Well, you can go back over 75 years and you can say each could respond to the other.
Okay.
But they've always done it on a much smaller scale. Do you accept that? And do you accept what Hamas did on October the 7th was on a scale totally out of kilter with anything that had happened on one day before? Do you accept that?
Yeah, obviously they killed
you accept that by
more
building
Israelis on that day. But what Israel has done since is infinitely worse.
Fine.
Infinitely worse.
By building the tunnel network, do you accept that Hamas protected themselves at the expense of the civilian population?
Israel wiped out civilian...
Do you accept that?
Israel attacked civilian
targets. Do you accept that Hamas
regardless.
knew what was going to happen
Benjamin Netanyahu,
and built the tunnels to hide
Benjamin Netanyahu...
Do you accept that part?
Again, it's irrelevant to the point of Israel attacking civilian
that
targets.
Israel knew exactly, that Hamas knew exactly what was going to do.
Israel Benjamin Netanyahu in the first
Freudian slip there.
Week was given a list of 100 targets by his general, and he said that's not enough targets. I want 400, and he said destroy their homes. That's what he said. This was revealed in an Israeli newspaper. Now,
which is genocidal intent. That is a strong evidence of genocidal. Go for people's homes. Like, with any other situation, Piers would call this a genocide. Why not now?
The idea that they were, the reason that they slaughtered so many civilians in that first week was because of tunnels is a lie, Piers, and you must know that's a lie.
No, it wasn't my question. My question was, do you not think that when Hamas planned this attack and carried it out, having spent 20 years building this tunnel network, they then hid in the tunnels and let their civilian population take the inevitable bombardment that was going to come back when they committed the attack they had committed? In other words, Hamas sacrificed their own civilian population.
That doesn't make sense, though. Okay, say if it's true, okay, but it's not inevitable that they would commit war crimes and commit a genocide. Like, they could have acted proportionally, like, under international law.
You're trying to deflect from Israel's direct responsibility.
You're saying that
we know Hamas committed war crimes. Everybody accepts.
Yeah, they're kind of taking the agency from Israel. Like, oh, what else were they to do? They had to commit a genocide. It's just inevitable. Like, you do the same. No.
When any country,
Israel is guilty of the war crimes it perpetrates.
So to be clear, then, your position is if a country has a terror attack on the scale of what Hamas did to Israel on October the 7th, any response by that country militarily is a war crime.
No. Such a straw man. Like, he did never not say that. Just shows you how weak his position is.
Well, is that your position? Is that your position?
If you kill civilians through either disproportionality,
that's not a war crime.
Legality,
that's not a war crime.
or intention,
Israel
made clear.
It's not a war crime.
Yes, it is. Israel made clear from the beginning.
Killing civilians? If it's not a war crime, well, what Hamas did is not a war crime then, by definition. Like, what is he talking about?
It's not a war crime.
Israel said from the beginning they were fighting human animals.
You don't understand international law.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you can just kill... Didn't you know that? You can just kill civilians. That's fine. That says quite a lot. I think he's accidentally shown his hand there, that he thinks the killing of Palestinian civilians is not a war crime. That says so much.
I do understand international law. A war crime is...
It's not a war crime.
A war crime doesn't mean if you're attacked, you can break international law, the norms of war. It means you have to abide by the norms of war.
It's not a war crime for a country to defend itself against terrorists.
Israel committed...
So that says so much. So he's saying now, Israel, carte blanche, can do whatever it wants, kill civilians, and it's not a genocide. Wow. The first time I watched that, I kind of missed that, but wow, that's essentially what he's saying. So anything he said now, his kind of stern questions of pro-Israelis, it was all performance. We know what his position is. Very interesting.
War crimes from the very beginning.
We
That's
will
the
establish the truth about the war crimes.
Do you think that Israel wasn't? Do you think Israel wasn't committing war crimes from day one?
I don't know.
When
they wouldn't let journalists in. I don't know what they were doing.
They did it on camera, Piers. They did it on camera in front of the whole.
But you
of the
think that any military response is a crime?
He says he don't know. He doesn't think killing civilians is a war crime, so he's not going to say that, is he?
I mean, that's not true.
That's not what I said.
It's pretty much what you implied.
The reason this has happened is because Israel has been committing war crimes for generations. Literally, the Nakba, in which 15,000 Palestinians
and yet every war that started in the
as they were driven from their homes.
75 years of the conflict, every one of the 5 wars has been started by.
That isn't true.
Well, who started them?
Do you think in 67 that's true? That's
each of the wars.
Absolutely not true at all. But we're talking about the Palestinian people.
Just to be clear, you think?
Are you saying this? Are you saying the Palestinian?
You think all 5 outbreaks of war in the 75 years were
talking about the Palestinian people
started by Israel?
The Palestinian people didn't start any of those wars.
Arabs started the wars.
So just Palestinians just get lumped in with Arabs.
Did Israel start those wars?
Did Palestinians start any of those wars?
Did
We're talking about Palestinians here. We're talking about the war on the Palestinian people. Yeah, but we're talking about the war on the We're talking about the war on the Palestinian people and their right to exist.
Is Israel ever allowed to defend itself?
Israel needs to become.
That's such a vague term. Like, yes, they are. But that doesn't mean you just do what he's saying, like, oh, you can kill civilians and just do whatever you want. No. Proportional response, end the occupation, create either a 1-state or 2-state. I don't think 2-state, I don't know. Whatever the, like, again, what do the Palestinians want? What do the Israelis want? Like, there has to be some democratic mandate. I think they don't want that, but that's a big discussion that we need to be having. But if we can't even decide if this is a genocide, like, the situation is pretty dire.
A single state from the river to the sea in which Jewish people and Palestinians have equal rights. That's what it needs to do. And until that happens, there will never be peace.
I believe in a 2-state solution where they all get the same human rights. On that, I agree.
OK, but the reason the war crimes, which you keep erasing because you keep starting.
I want to see the evidence of the war crimes. So when it comes, I will be the first to lambast them.
They did them on camera.
But I prefer due process on these things.
Yeah, but when they declare to the world they're fighting human animals and they're going to, from the very beginning they said,
I would call Hamas human animals.
They didn't say, they said civilians.
Right,
they said the residents of Gaza, and they said they were cutting off, at the very beginning, water and fuel. Is a deliberate siege of a deliberate siege of a civilian population, is that a war crime, yes or no?
Listen, if you're asking me, do I agree with the occupation? No.
No, I'm talking about the siege. They announced the siege
No, they
of
shouldn't
Gaza.
have been able to do it.
Is it a war crime or not?
Probably.
So you accept they committed war crimes?
Yeah, probably. Like, he's so insufferable.
From day one, then.
I think the siege that they enacted because they were able to is indicative of the wider, bigger picture problem of the occupation. I agree with that.
So you conceded the point then. You've conceded the point that this doesn't begin, obviously, in the 7th of October.
Of course not.
But then...
I've never said that.
You would never say...
I think you should watch my show more often.
He kind of does imply that because he's always like, do you condemn Hamas? It's never starting with the, do you condemn the brutal occupation of Palestine for 75 years, which is the framing you should start with. Like, let's start at 48 and the displacement, the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians. But he doesn't do that. The framing is always against Hamas, not the occupier.
Well, I've got life.
It's good to have you back.
Life's too short.
It's good to have you back. But honestly, life isn't too short for you to be better informed about what I do on my show.
Well, you don't accept Israel's
committing genocide. You throw out all these
genocide.
generalisations, which make me think you haven't watched it.
You don't think Israel's committing genocide?
You have to watch all of. You have to watch all of Piers Morgan's shows to criticise him.
You'd be better informed if you watch my show more often.
Do you think Israel's committing genocide?
As you were about our friend Bob Violin, who it turned out made you look a right chump.
Well, anyway, you look more of a chump when you won't accept Israel's committing genocide, Piers, which is really easy to do. You could just say it now. Is Israel committing genocide?
When the ICC says it's genocide, I will say it's genocide. So that's what we have.
That's the only time you're waiting.
That's kind of a legal process I'm waiting for.
OK, so you will never...
But we've run out of time.
OK, so...
It's good to see you.
If Hamas... You don't think Hamas has committed war crimes either?
Come back again soon.
OK, fair enough.
Hamas committed war crimes.
But you've not not waiting for the ICC to make their case.
No, because Hamas broadcast it on their own GoPros.
So have Israel.
We're committing war crimes.
See the double standard. Israel do exactly the same thing on TikTok. They're doing their dances. They're playing with Palestinian dead kids' toys. But no. Also, killing civilians. No, not a war crime. It's inevitable. Piers Morgan has shown his true colours, I really think. And this is why he doesn't do interviews with people like this, because he knows the writing's on the wall. Israel has committed a genocide. He's in denial about it. He's a genocide denier. And will he apologise in the future? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, I'll see you in the next video.